If you're going to understand the current tax reform debate, you have to understand a little bit about how taxes work. When we're talking about tax reform, what we're really talking about is the federal income tax, and that's the tax people pay on their income, the money they get at their job, to the federal government. The way it works is your employer tells the government how much you made, and then the government tells you what percent you owe them. How about a simple example? Let's say you made $100. Not very good, but it's a nice, easy number to work with. Let's say the tax rate is 10%. Then you would owe the government $10. Pretty easy math. Now, what if the tax rate was only 5%? Well, then you'd owe the government $5. Now, certainly a part of the tax reform debate right now is to change these numbers, specifically to make them lower. Now, there's not just one tax rate, there's actually 5. The higher your income, the higher your percentage. Some people find that very unfair, and therefore chances are the proposal will be to lower those higher tax rates, which you'll hear the argument then only is helping the people at the higher income levels. That's part of the debate, but not really the big part of this debate. The big part of this debate comes down to the other way to lower your taxes other than just a lower tax rate, and that is, what if you show the government a lower income? What if you're able to hide some of your income? So for example, let's say instead of the $100, you convince your employer to tell them it was only $20. Well, then at 10%, you only owe $2. Now, would your employer ever do that? No, because they could end up in federal prison. But as it turns out, the government actually has a way for you to do that very thing, to actually lower your income. And it's called the deduction. What is a deduction? A deduction is certain types of spending that you can actually subtract from your income. Yes, the government actually wants you to cheat on your taxes as long as you do it their way. Now, what are some commonly deductible things? Well, you probably know a lot of these, but here are the big ones. Charity. So this is why you may give bags of clothes to the Salvation Army. Kids. Yes, you're a deduction to your parents. Work expenses. So for example, if you have to buy a uniform at work, that's a deduction. And then the granddaddy of them all, home ownership. Owning a house is far and away the best way to get a tax deduction. Not renting a house, not renting an apartment, but owning your own home. Opens the door to literally tens of thousands of dollars of tax deductions, which of course lowers your tax bill. Now, let's take a look at how this would work in our little simple example. You've made $100. The tax rate's 10%, but you tell the government, hey, I had $30 in deductions. So instead, 100 minus your 30 in deductions becomes 70. 10% of 70 is only 7. So by deducting this, you get to lower your bottom line. So what's the debate? Well, the current proposals call for doing away with specific deductions. So for example, it's possible if this passes, there will be no more deductions for home ownership. Now, instead, everybody would get one set deduction amount. Whether you have children, whether you gave to charity, whether you have a job or own a home, everyone would get that one certain amount. Certainly much simpler. Now, is it fair? Well, it depends who you talk to. If you own a home, you don't really like this because you enjoy that tax deduction. If you have a bunch of kids, you may not really like this because you enjoy, well, the tax deduction part of being a parent. So if we get rid of those deductions, certain people are going to be angry. Now, the other people that are mad are business groups. If you're a builder or a realtor or you're in the mortgage business, you know that your business is partially driven by the fact that there are these deductions for home ownership. You get rid of the home ownership deduction and suddenly your business suffers. So the current debate, while it is about lowering the rates, really ought to be called tax deduction reform because they're talking about really truly changing the way taxes work by changing deductions. And that basically is the argument you should be listening for.